Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to join you to help celebrate the 20th anniversary of the 21st Century Nanotechnology Research and Development Act, and to let me say a few words about the beginnings of the National Nanotechnology Initiative. Of course, I wish I could be there with you in person, but aging does have its constraints. Because as I look back over 2 decades, working on the NNI stands out as one of the most rewarding experiences I had as President Clinton's science advisor. In 1998, at the end of what must have been my last hearing at the National Science Foundation, before moving to the White House, a member asked me the final question, something like, "Well, Dr. Lane, what do you think the future breakthroughs will come from?" Well, of course, you should say I have no idea, but my quick reaction, for whatever reason, was nanoscience and engineering. There were no follow-up questions. Now, over 20 years later, I'm amazed at how science and engineering at the nanoscale have advanced and the impact those advances have had on other technologies, on markets and jobs. Recently, a study of just a small and medium-sized nanotechnology companies estimated an economic impact of close to $1 trillion since the birth of NNI. And that doesn't include the Fortune 500 and other multi-sector companies, which also benefit from nanotechnology. But even with this record of accomplishment, if I were asked the same question today, I think my answer could be pretty much the same. There's still so much potential and so much research that needs to be done to realize that potential. But how did NNI get started, at least from a personal perspective? Well, in the final 2 years of the Clinton administration, there were a number of steps that I believe were relevant. The first was to officially raise the profile of nanotechnology to the level of the president and his cabinet. Well, when I got there, I found out I could do that by elevating the Interagency Working Group on Nanotechnology, which was working on an initiative proposal, to the President's National Science and Technology Council, which he chaired. Well, I was enthusiastic about the proposal, as was Tom Khalil, who handled technology for the President's National Economic Council and was influential in the West Wing. Next, I took the proposal to the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, PCAST. And PCAST then, in reviewing this proposal, turned to Chuck Vest, then president of MIT, who formed a panel of experts and reviewed the proposal and made a recommendation to the full council. And based on that review, PCAST then recommended that President Clinton fund the NNI. Well, after some discussions, let me say, in the West Wing, where several competing proposals for initiatives were on the table, the president chose the NNI, and he included nearly $500 million in his 2001 budget request to Congress. I had the pleasure of traveling on Air Force One with the president when he gave his speech at Caltech on January the 21st, year 2000, announcing what he called his 21st Century Research Fund, which highlighted the NNI. Clinton was hosted by then Caltech President David Baltimore and Board Chair Gordon Moore. They presented him with a set of golf clubs made using nanostructured amorphous alloys. And he played a few rounds back in Washington, but then he had to return them, government ethics laws being in place. But he sent along some comments on how much he'd enjoyed the fruits of nanotechnology. The president made NNI a high priority in the budget discussions with Congress, which ended up appropriating over $460 million for fiscal year 2001. So the NNI was born. Well, at least it had some money. In 2002, Senator Ron Wyden, then chairman of the Senate Subcommittee on Science, Technology, and Space, held a key congressional hearing on nanotechnology, which led to the 21st Century Nanotechnology R&D Act, passed by Congress and signed by President George W. Bush in 2003. In closing, I'd just like to add a couple of personal comments. Before joining NSF, I was a member of the Rice University physics faculty, and so I had many chances to talk with colleagues like Rick Smalley and Bob Curl, who of course shared the Nobel Prize with Croteau for their discovery of carbon-60. And then I got to NSF, I began to learn from Mike Rocco about the nanoscale research that NSF and other agencies were supporting all over the country. Mike, I think, saw the potential for this revolutionary new technology a very long time ago. He was a champion of the NNI from the beginning, and he played a key role in pulling together other agencies in support of the initiative. President Clinton was interested in science and technology, and he was scary smart. He had no trouble seeing the potential of engineers being able to work at the nanoscale. But he liked to joke. In one budget meeting, I recall him saying, "It's my tiny little initiative," even though he knew it was going to cost nearly $500 million to get it started. I've been enormously pleased with the success of NNI and proud to have had a very small role in its birth. NNI is a success story that needs to be told. It's a proven model for what our federal research agencies can do when they work together in support of a national goal. I believe the NNI should remain a top priority. So I'll just end by congratulating all of you and the many scientists, engineers, laboratories, federal agencies, and companies that have given us so much to celebrate today. So thank you all. Have a great nano birthday.